Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to the Great Ace Attorney Chronicles. Previously, we started getting a better view on the big picture here. We learned some more information. Nikolina Pavlova's little pet was not a snake, as I had guessed, but a little kitten wearing a bell. And the speckled band that Kazuma recorded in his diary as seeing, shortly before his death, that was the cat toy she dangled through the ventilator to try and lure her pet, Darka, back into her own room. And also, I'm pretty sure that half-broken object that we found in Kazuma's room, that little pink bell-shaped thing, that must have been the bell from Darka's collar. Anyway, we're now halfway through Sholm's great deduction here, so let's pick things back up and see what else he gets wrong. Moving on, we come to the heart of the matter, the grim demise of the victim. How did this young man lose his life, and why? According to the data of which I have been apprised, it would appear there were no visible signs of injury. In fact, the circumstances of the victim's death can only be explained by a terrible venom. Well, there's no snake, is there? What Mr. Sholm says is true. There were no signs of a wound anywhere on Kazuma-sama's body. That's right. But Mr. Sholm seems to be unaware of one very important detail. Kazuma wasn't poisoned. Yes, it would seem so. Man, I'm confused. Are those blue text lines in internal monologue or not? Let's give him the information he's missing now. Autopsy report. No traces of external injury or poison. Cause of death, cervical spine injury.
Yes!
In fact, the circumstances of the victim's death can only be explained by the post-mortem report. Yes, I knew it was one or the other. His neck was... Indeed, the breaking of the cervical vertebrae is fatal. Only that Goliath would be strong enough to survive that. Seaman Stroganoff isn't some immortal freak, you know. The jury is out. Anyway, we have on good authority that the victim's neck was broken. Now, if we take that as fact, we can reasonably imagine that there remains evidence to affirm it at the scene of the crime. Oh no, could there be? Yes, an examination of the deceased's body will prove the cause of death conclusively. Kazuma died because his neck was broken. In other words, he was probably struck by something, or someone. Yes, that's a distinct possibility. As of yet, no weapon has been found, though. Presumably, Darka didn't silently creep up behind Kazuma and deal him a fatal blow. I suppose. It's possible that he had a fall and hit the ground awkwardly. It could have been a terrible act of misfortune that he broke his neck completely by accident. Oh yes, a bad fall could explain it. It's rather hard to believe of Kazuma-sama, though. He wasn't a clumsy man. Well, we need to fix this deduction somehow. Is there anything from the scene that could explain what happened? Really? An examination of blank will prove the cause of death conclusive. Really? Could it be the mark on the floor? I mean, that's supposed to be shoe polish, right? That's half of Darka's bell. Well, if you did trip, I assume your shoe would scuff the ground on your way down. Okay, we might be able to see what happens if I get something wrong here.
Yes!
Really? Interesting. Yes, an examination of the mark on the floor will prove the cause of death conclusively. This particular mark, so prominently visible next to the victim's body, is a deposit of shoe polish. Shoe polish? Indeed, positively identified by a little analysis device I constructed, which I carry now as a matter of course. Beeswax, tallow, and dye were my results, the undeniable ingredients of shoe polish. And the color of the polish is a perfect match to the color of Mr. Osogi's laced leather shoes. Looking at this mark, it's not hard to imagine what happened. For some reason, Mr. Osogi must have caught his foot at that point on the floor and tripped. Did he trip over the cat? Please, no. And by a dreadful turn of misfortune, caught his neck against some immovable object as he fell to the floor. Suffering a fatal blow to the spine, the victim's vertebrae shattered, and in that instant he lost his life. No, I don't believe this. That in every single case, without exception, there has been a murder. In all Ace Attorney games, not counting the spin-off, but the spin-off is weird. Don't talk about the spin-off, even though it was good. Just don't talk about it right here in this conversation. No, I refuse to believe he was not murdered. No! I don't know. I don't know anything about this. Is that really true, Miss Pavlova? What about the evidence left at the scene where Mr. Osogi lost his life? Yes, the facts are as clear as day to me. You did all you could to conceal the incriminating evidence. But now your involuntary glance betrays the hiding place you chose. That's right, you hid the evidence that links you to the victim's death in that traveling case. I don't believe it. Kazuma-sama merely tripped over and now he's no more? It can't be true, I refuse to accept it. Well, I can't accept that it can happen. Human beings are fragile as hell, dude. Falling the wrong way absolutely can kill you. That's absolutely true. I just don't believe it because that's, narratively speaking, that's so weird and not normal for this series. I know it's hard to believe, but the mark on the floor does seem to suggest that's what happened. And if this part of Mr. Sholm's deduction is right, Miss Pavlova is trying to hide some evidence that would prove it. Here in this cabin, somewhere in the direction that she just cast her eyes. Where, I wonder? Let's have a good look around. The answer must be here somewhere. Well, maybe it was the tiara. But how? Waste paper basket. Hold on, let's look at that. This is a waste paper basket. Perhaps all the first-class cabins have them. But Miss Pavlova only started occupying this cabin late last night. So how's there so much trash in there? Presumably there's not much rubbish in there yet. Oh, what's that? Hey! It's a broken piece of glass, isn't it? Yes, it is. And I feel like I've seen it somewhere before. If it looks familiar, perhaps it's more than your mind simply playing tricks on you. Well, let's read the other stuff too. This is where Miss Pavlova hid her friend. That's right. And it wasn't a snake after all. No, it was a little kitten she calls Darka. Not that it's anywhere to be seen now. It seems to have let itself out of the case and gone exploring. I expect it's wrapped itself around someone's head somewhere, trying to make a new friend. Either that or it's scratching their hand to pieces. Point is, where has it got to? Somebody appears to have dropped 20,000 rubles here. It hasn't been dropped, Naruhodo-san. It's been placed. I'm starting to sound like Mr. Sholmes. Stop trying to sound like the great detective. That was worth it. Right.
Yes!
That's right. You hit the evidence that links you to the victim's death in that waste paper basket. Here we have a fragment of some intricate glass object, it would seem. One that has a familiar air, in fact. Precisely. We found another piece of broken glass on the floor in Mr. Asogi's cabin. And as you can see, the two pieces fit together perfectly. Oh no. So, Miss Pavlova, shall we consider what this tells us? Why would it be that part of this glass object, which was evidently broken at the scene of the victim's death, should be found in the waste paper basket in your cabin? Kia! You're well acquainted with this glass bell, are you not? I don't. I don't know, and that hushed Russian accent of yours won't save you this time, dear girl. Why? Because we have conclusive evidence linking you to the bell in question. What? Take it away, Mr. Naruhodo. With pleasure. Yes. The evidence linking Miss Pavlova and the little glass bell, that would be the photo.
Yes!
If you look at this photograph, you can clearly see, hanging from Darka's collar, the very glass bell in question. The truth has caught up with you, Miss Pavlova. The young man who lost his life last night did so after a truly inauspicious fall. And the cause of that fateful stumble your absent feline friend, Darka. This is ridiculous. I couldn't tell anyone. I'm sorry. Well, there you have it. I wonder if I'll ever get, like, topic 3 or 4 later in the game. Deduction complete. Elementary. Hell yeah. Why don't you tell us now, Miss Pavlova? Tell us exactly what happened last night. It was a little after 1 in the morning. It was so late, but I hadn't had time to feed Darka, so I gave her some food. And then, all of a sudden, she scratched me and jumped out of my hands. People do say that cats become very anxious and nervous in new environments. She was so fast, she disappeared through the ventilator before I could stop her. And that is how you acquired the rather nasty wound on the back of your hand, I take it? Yes. And I had read the, rules on the wall. I knew that I was not allowed Darka with me. Yes, modern science suggests that animals can carry infectious diseases. It's a precaution, really. So I listened and listened, trying to hear if there was some noise in the cabin. It was very quiet. I was sure if someone was there, he must be sleeping. So at that point, you thought it safe to try to lure the kitten back again. By dangling the end of the toy through the ventilator and into the adjoining cabin. Darka always loves this toy, but it didn't work. Nothing worked. I tried using her favorite toy. I tried whistling to her softly, but nothing. She didn't return. So the faint whistling sound Cosmo wrote about in his diary was Miss Pavlova trying to retrieve her pet. Cats have a propensity to remain hidden in the shadows when frightened. Yes, so there was nothing else I could do. I just had to wait until she calmed down. But then... I nearly passed out with shock. I heard her cry out, and then... Oh, it was such a dreadful bang. Then, afterwards, nothing. It was totally silent. Cosmo was... From the appearance of the brown mark on the floor, it seems likely that what you heard was the victim stepping on the glass bell and tripping up. The SS Buria is a large vessel, but even she can pitch and roll violently without warning. If Mr. Osogi was already off balance as a result of the ship lurching when the kitten got under his feet, the combination of unfortunate factors could easily have caused him to fall over. But what became of the kitten afterwards? In the end, I managed to get her to come back through the ventilator. Yet Darka is nowhere to be seen. I must have forgotten to lock my case. And now she's disappeared again. Gracious, that cat is as insufferably restless as I am. Well, he knows something about himself at least. When I woke this morning, I heard a young man in the cabin next to mine had died. But I couldn't bring myself to tell anyone what had happened. I was too scared. Scared that they would send me back. Oh, hold on a minute. What about the snake? You're right, where is it? If the snake isn't your friend, Miss Pavlova, then whose is it and where did it come from? Oh, he made friends with it! Yeah! What? Okay, well, maybe that's a one-sided relationship. What on earth is such a dangerous creature doing on board the ship? Oh, I didn't say. Snake is my friend. His name is Perozko. Did I pronounce that right? Perozko? Huh? What? What? That snake belongs to you? He escaped from cage when emergency alarm sounded. I was looking for him. I did not expect to find him in here. Yes, how did that snake get into this cabin? But animals are not permitted on board. Huh. We are at sea for 1 year. You want to be so long without a close friend? Without someone who understands? As he actually has emotions in there. Couldn't you find someone a little more human who understands you better? But my dear burly fellow, a gargantuan venomous snake. Surely you can appreciate the danger you're putting everyone in. No venom. Huh? Orozco does not have venom. He is harmless, very long but very gentle. He is adorable like Granny. It's venomless. Yes, now he is hungry, so he is in bad mood. But once I feed him, you will see big smile. And you feed him what? Milk, I suppose? Huh. Like they say they milk chickens. Ridiculous. Snakes that drink milk are only in stupid stories. Hirozuko eats mouses. Big, fat, round mouses. Oh, so... is that what the mouse trap in the passageway out there is for? Of course. How else can I catch my friend's favorite food? Nothing says top of the food chain like the look in their eyes right now. It refuses to drink milk, it can't hear a whistle, it can't climb up a bell cord, and it's not even venomous. How the deuce did something so inept land a starring role? Is not my fault. I do not make up stories. My Hirozuko is nothing to do with this incident. So that's what happened. That's the truth behind my best friend's tragic death. Is it? No, it's not. Why would he write in Russian to check the wardrobe? Huh. Miss Pavlova, I understand the difficult situation you found yourself in, and I do sympathize. But please remember this. A young man lost his life. If you're going to attempt to cover up your guilt with lies, then no matter what the circumstances, I cannot forgive you. But... what are you talking about, Miss Mikotoba? What lies? Miss Pavlova just confessed everything. It was just a series of unfortunate events. An accident. I'm no great detective like Mr. Sholmes. I don't have a gift for knowing the truth. But even I can see that was not the truth. Don't you agree, Mr. Naruhodo? To be perfectly honest, yes. There's a discrepancy in Miss Pavlova's story. I'm sure of it, I just can't quite put my finger on it. I confess, I was intending to let Scotland Yard deal with any outstanding issues on this matter. Oh. I am only present here for a very specific reason. The truth is, you, Mr. Naruhodo, are simply a distraction. A distraction? I do hope you've not been finding your shackles too uncomfortable. Not again? When did he do that? Especially as they're on your wrists as a result of my intervention. I was rather hoping I could resolve matters before we made our next port call. You were, Mr. Sholmes? Yes, but I overlooked one important detail. The deceased young man was a very close companion of yours. Was he not? Yes. Kazuma was my closest friend. I owed him my freedom, even. In that case, we must follow this to its conclusion. No further distractions. You must uncover the real truth here, Mr. Naruhodo. Yes, whatever that may be. The key to this is the discrepancy in Miss Pavlova's story, I'm sure. If I can chase that down, maybe the truth will become clear. The truth about how you really died, about how that scene in your cabin really came to be. Alright, I'll see what I can do. Is this a new song? I'm digging it. Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Naruhodo. So then, shall we begin? Yes. What we should ponder first is the victim who lost his life in a cabin that was bolted shut from the inside. Was this truly an unfortunate accident? Or was it in fact no accident at all? That is what we must establish in the first instance. But we've already established it, haven't we? The man tripped over the kitten that had climbed into his cabin via the ventilator. Tragic, yes, but still an accident.
Hold it!
Wait, let's just take a step back. It doesn't make sense if that's really what happened, does it? I'm going to have to ask you to spell it out for me, I'm afraid. Yes, it's starting to take shape now. There's a clear contradiction between the facts and Miss Pavlova's story here. The evidence is right there in Kazuma's cabin, it's undeniable. His death couldn't possibly have been a mere accident. Really? Let us show our hand, Mr. Naruhodo. Time to present the evidence. The evidence that proves unequivocally that the victim's death was no mere accident. The absurdity that Cosmo used the Russian language in his last moments. Why would he do that? Honestly, it's the one big problem remaining, I think, is this.
Yes!
The truth is clearly recorded in this photographic print. Also, I just realized that was the 5 Strikes health bar system showing up in the investigation phase? Damn, okay. There's no way that Mr. Asogi could have left this message on the floor. That script, it's Russian, isn't it? Indeed it is. The word written means wardrobe. I see what you mean. Most people would leave a dying message in their native language, Japanese in this case. But maybe he was studying Russian. It is a simple language. He could have picked it up very fast. Doesn't seem likely. Also, her reaction here, she desperately wants this to be true. Something about the truth here will incriminate her further? How? That's actually not the point. It makes no difference whether he knew Russian or not. Sorry? What do you mean? Exactly what I said before. There is no way that Mr. Asogi could have left this message on the floor. And the reason why is clearly explained in here. Damage to the cervical vertebrae resulting in instant death. Instant death. Ah! Which means, after the victim fell to the floor, he couldn't possibly have written anything. Because he was already dead. That's not the only reason either. There's something else we found in Mr. Asogi's cabin. A remnant of something that couldn't possibly have been there, if what Miss Pavlova told us was true. What? So, Susato-san has noticed it too then. putting this message on the floor aside, there's something else that gives the truth away. Another piece of evidence that proves this was no accident. In other words, the mark on the floor? Well, let me look at the history here. There's something else we found in Asogi's cabin. A remnant of something that couldn't possibly have been there if what Miss Pavlova told us was true. Now, remnant... that would be able to describe the bell, but... it could possibly have been there if what Pavlova said was true. The cat went in there, the cat had the bell. Wait a goddamn second. Wait just a goddamn second? No! Half the bell was in Kazuma's cabin, that's true, but the other half was in Pavlova's cabin, in her trash. But apparently, Pavlova never entered Kazuma's cabin, so how could she possibly have retrieved her half of the bell? Hold on!
Yes!
This piece of broken glass next to the mark on the floor. But that's the glass bell the kitten had around its neck. We already knew all about that. It was broken in half when the victim tripped over the cat and fell. So we already have a satisfactory explanation. Where's the flaw in that logic? Unfortunately, there is a very big flaw. A fatal flaw. What? If that's really what happened, then how did one half of the bell end up back here in this cabin? Ah! Yes, remember that we found the other half of the glass bell in that waste paper basket? Would you care to explain that, Miss Pavlova? Oh no! Both these pieces of evidence clearly point to the same conclusion. That when Mr. Asogi died last night in his cabin, there was someone else in the room. And that same person deliberately arranged the scene to disguise the truth, in order to cover up his or her own guilt. Kya! Yes, there was someone else present in Mr. Asogi's... You are wasting time. Someone else was there? Da, of course, we know this. What are you talking about? Bulkhead was bolted shut from inside. There was no way in or out. You sure about that? Oh, yes. And only other person in cabin when young student died was you.
Yes!
It's true, I was in the cabin when it happened. You were shut inside the cabin wardrobe, to be precise about the details. But I don't know Russian. There's no way I would have left the message. Not would have. There's no way you could have left that message. To be precise about the details. Would you mind? Forgive me, my dear fellow. As I was saying, the person in question wrote the word wardrobe in Russian on the floor, in an attempt to incriminate me for the crime, even though I had been sleeping there the entire time. And then, the same person picked up the broken glass bell that had fallen to the floor, for fear of it becoming evidence that would show how Mr. Asogi really died. But why wouldn't this person have taken all the pieces of the bell away? Leaving half behind was always going to raise questions. Yes, well, It was past 1 o'clock in the early hours of the morning. The cabin would have been quite dark. Well, I mean, there's no windows in either cabin, so... The single small lamp suspended from the ceiling would barely have cast any light under the floor there. Well, that's true, but the time of day doesn't matter. There's no windows whatsoever. Little wonder, then, that the culprit failed to notice a fragment of the tiny item. You all suspect me, don't you?
Hold it!
Seaman Stroganoff. Nina is woman of sea. She is daughter of strong sailor. 2 years ago, they noticed her dancing skills and she went away to join ballet company. But before, she was dancer on this ship, a member of ship's band. You do not accuse ship's angel of being criminal. Ah, so that's it. You say that when young student died, Nina was there in his cabin. But that is not possible. I give my tooth. Well, this is all most interesting. And why would you give your tooth, pray? How can you be so sure? You are a great detective, you should know. Look truth in eyes, cabin bulkhead was bolted shut from inside. Nobody could go into cabin, not Nina, not anyone. Or you want to tell me that killer can walk through locked doors? Yet, it's impossible. He's right. But wait, I've read about this in detective stories. People often tie thread around door latches so they can open and close them from the outside. We didn't just, but we definitely talked about this and it was an impossibility. Thread? Are you stupid? These bulkheads are not barn doors. Certainly not. These are watertight doors, so as one would expect to find on any modern steamship. Constructed of heavy steel with not a gap in sight, no threads or needles or magnets could have been used. No, of course not. I thought so too. But Mr. Naruhodo suggested it earlier, so... Oh, throw me under the bus, why don't ya? Susato-san, how could you just shift it onto me like that? So Seaman Stroganoff has a valid point. The cabin door couldn't have been bolted shut from the outside. Not necessarily. What? I put it to you that I could bolt this cabin door without laying a finger on it. And in this very cabin, we can see the traces of the method I have in mind haven't been used before. I don't believe it. Well, Mr. Naruhodo, I believe you know what I mean, don't you? A way to shut the bolt of the cabin door from the outside? One way does spring to mind, yes. Do you really know what Mr. Shums means, Mr. Naruhodo? Yes, and so should you. Because we've seen it happen. Indeed we have. So, would you care to do the honors, Mr. Naruhodo? Point out the telling signs of the method that was used to slide the cabin door bolt across from the outside. The icon's not changing, but I assume I just need to select this.
Yes!
Look at the bookcase there. See how all the books and things on it have toppled over? That must have happened when the ship made its emergency stop before. Yes, that's right. It's a very powerful vessel after all. When the engines are thrown into reverse, a violent jolt goes across the entire ship. Any small objects that aren't fastened down are bound to fall over. I believe, yes, it's what's known as the force of inertia, acting on the objects. Is there nothing Susato-san doesn't know? Or that isn't in her book, at least? Well, whatever it's called, the same force that pushed over those books on the bookcase also made something else in this cabin move. The bolt on the cabin door. Ah! It was very obvious just after the emergency stop that the ship made earlier. We had come into this cabin not long before, and we hadn't bolted the door. But then... Hello? Is anybody in there? Shout if you need assistance. Oh, that sounds like... Inspector Hosonaga. Oh, yes. That's it. When the ship stopped suddenly, the bolt flew across and locked the door. Yes, it's made of metal, but it's small and light enough to be moved on by the ship's sudden change of speed. Or the force of inertia, if you want to call it that. Isn't that inertia? Are you trying to say that last night, after Mr. Sogi was killed? The SS Burya made another emergency stop? When I woke up this morning and looked around the cabin, I thought it looked a little odd. All the books on the shelves had toppled over, and all the ornaments. It was almost as if someone had run their hand across the shelves and deliberately knocked everything over. Oh yes, I remember that. And I stood them all up again, didn't I? Then, when we came to this cabin, we were surprised to see the same thing in here. All the books and everything had toppled over, just like in Mr. Asogi's cabin. Oh my! Do you have anything to say about this, Miss Pavlova? Are you out of your mind? You say Burya made emergency stop? It does seem a little far-fetched. How could that possibly have happened? Unless you're saying that the culprit is actually someone from the engine room. Oh, it is simple enough. Huh? Are you forgetting the button in the passageway outside used to trigger the emergency alarm? Oh, yes, of course. There was a notice, wasn't there? Telling you only to press the button in times of emergency? On dark nights when the fog is dense, the cabin cannot afford to rely on the eyes of his lookout alone. Hence the placement of a number of buttons around the vessel to allow any crewman to raise the alarm. The sort of button one is almost compelled to press to satisfy one's curiosity. Wait, it was you? When the button is pressed, two things happen in the interests of safety. The emergency alarm bell rings and the vessel comes to a complete stop. You would press that button. As indeed it did a little earlier today. Mr. Sholmes, surely it wasn't you who... As I always say, a button has but one purpose in life. To be pressed, whatever the occasion. He sounds almost proud of himself. How dare you mess with ship? I report you to Captain. You are in much trouble now. Now, I'm sure all that can wait until later. Let us not overlook the fact that we have now learned a valuable lesson. When the vessel makes an emergency stop, the bolts on the cabin doors slide closed. So, what we must now consider...
Yes, it all comes down to one thing now. Last night, after what happened to Mr. Asogi, did this ship make an emergency stop, or did it not?
You are idiots. Burya is huge ship with many passengers. If we make emergency stop even in middle of night, there would be chaos everywhere. What are your thoughts, Mr. Naruhodo? Well, it's certainly possible that some kind of emergency happened last night. We have evidence to support that idea.
Really? What evidence, Mr. Naruhodo?
Fascinating. Do show us, my good man. What evidence promotes the theory that some emergency gripped this vessel last night? Clever, clever, clever. The proof that there was an emergency is that there's nothing here. It was all hands on deck for something for hours. From 2 to 5:30 at least. Oh my god. Beef, where were you? Where's the beef?
Yes!
Seaman Stroganoff, it's your duty to patrol the first-class area of the ship, isn't that right? Duh, that is correct. Why? And the ship's log here. This would be where you record the details of your duties. What are you doing with that? That is mine. You rather carelessly left it atop the little makeshift bureau in the passageway out there. But as responsible passengers, we took it into our care with a mind to return it to you later. I left it there on purpose. That is where I put it always. The point is, looking at what you usually record, it's clear that under normal circumstances you write the phrase "nothing to report" every 30 minutes. But from 2 o'clock last night until first light this morning, nothing was recorded at all. Nothing recorded in the log? That is... Duh, because nothing happened. But if nothing happened, you would normally write "nothing to report," wouldn't you? Gulp. Indeed so, which tells us that shortly after 2 a.m., something happened here aboard the SS Burya. Something sufficiently significant to make you forget to fill in the ship's log, in fact.
Are you suggesting that the ship really did make an emergency stop in the middle of the night?
Stop talking rubbish. If I'm perfectly honest, I find that a little hard to believe myself. Oh? Why? Well, because if something as major as an emergency stop really had happened, surely all of us would have noticed.
That's very true. Thanks to the emergency stop we experienced earlier, we all know what it feels like now. The ship lurched so violently, and the alarm bell was so loud. I can't imagine that anybody would sleep through that, even if it happened in the dead of night.
Unless you were all drugged. You all have those pounding heads, don't you? Well, no, that's a good point. What of the throbbing? Hey. That's what she said. Sorry? What do you mean? Your head, man. That's what she said? The throbbing of your head since this morning. We have all suffered with it. Oh, I am such a child. Not in front of the lady, man. Oh, yes, I have a headache, you're right. In fact, I haven't been feeling myself since I woke up today.
Nor have I. My head has been feeling heavy ever since dawn.
Yes, you've all been afflicted, haven't you? Just as I suspected. He's right. My head's been throbbing today, too. And since eating dinner yesterday evening, everything has felt sort of hazy. I can't really remember anything that happened after I climbed back inside the wardrobe. Then the first thing I noticed this morning was the throbbing pain in my head. I had already been dragged out of the wardrobe and had those handcuffs put on me by that point. Why didn't I wake up when all that was happening to me? Tell me, Mr. Naruhodo, you boarded this vessel as a stowaway, didn't you? Oh, well, yes, sorry. The stowaway class of accommodation doesn't usually include meals. What did you survive on? Well, Kazuma looked after me. He was always happy to share his meals. So you enjoyed some of the whole roast chicken dish that was served yesterday evening, I take it? Yes, in fact, I had all of that. Kazuma wasn't fond of chicken. Oh, really? So the victim didn't eat any of the chicken at all? That's right, he didn't touch it. Is that relevant? My dear fellow, does that not strike you?
Oh, Mr. Sholmes, do you mean to say that there was something wrong with the chickens?
I do. No, really? Is that really true? The meal prepared for the passengers last night. Oh, the meal prepared for the passengers last night had been tampered with. Tampered with by the addition of a soporific designed to induce a very deep slumber in those who consumed it. A sleeping drug? Do you mean whoever did this laced every meal with a sleeping drug so no one would notice the ship's emergency stop?
Mr. Naruhodo, of course that's not what Mr. Sholmes means. What a far-fetched idea.
Precisely. Lacing every meal of every passenger on board with the soporific drug would certainly be impossible. Unless, that is, every single member of the crew was a conspirator.
What? Mr. Sholmes?
Well, Seaman? I'm sorry to say that any more deception in this matter will get you nowhere. If you refuse to talk, there would have to be an inquiry made through the shipping company, of course. And were that to happen, every member of the crew and the captain himself would be hauled over the coals. For aiding and abetting a renegade. Oh. You know what? I thought Holmes was just being his usual incorrect self, but maybe there's a grain of truth here.
Please, no more. I will tell everything.
Of course. She was the angel of the ship. They looked out for her. They would do everything they could to help her. Anything they could.
I cannot make problems like this for everyone anymore.
These crewmen are your former comrades, I believe.
Yes, so when I decided to run away, I asked them to help me.
We all agreed to help. Everyone, together. She threw away everything. Her fame in the ballet, Mother Russia. We wanted to help our angel.
Wow! So Sholmes was actually right. I didn't believe him at all. That tall tale, that outlandish claim is actually true. Everyone on board. Everyone. Everyone. But something about the timeline doesn't match up. Hold on here. Hold on. So presumably, Pavlova lost her cat at around 1, and for the next hour she tried in vain to get the cat to come back. Presumably at that point she went to speak with Beef Stroganov to get help from the entire crew, and that's why no log was entered in the record. But this was at 2 a.m. in the morning. Poisoning the entire ship's passengers with soporifics in their food would have happened the day before, so it would be hours before this trouble began. What cause did they have to do the sleep then? Did Pavlova believe that Kazuma was some sort of detective? Something doesn't add up yet. Or maybe something does, I just don't understand it quite yet. Interesting. But yeah, very interesting turn of events this time. Wow. This is wonderfully intricate. All of this was written about 2 rooms and a few props and a hallway if you want to split hairs. Wow, this is wonderful. But I'm partially wondering, are we even going to go to a court phase? It feels like a lot has been uncovered in this investigation phase. Way more than what you would usually do in this series. Usually, in investigation phases, you gather evidence and a bit of testimony from witnesses, and it's then in court where you actually start using the evidence to prove people wrong and dig to the truth. But no, this entire video here, we've been presenting evidence and digging to the truth and proving people to be liars and uncovering the truth bit by bit. Functionally, it's like we're in court, so this case number 2 here being called The Great Misadventure of the Speckled Band or whatever, that feels self-contained. Once all this is solved, that's it. On to the 3rd case in this game. So wherefore then will be the actual, court. But you know what? Maybe I just had it all wrong from the start.
maybe the fact that the intro tutorial case of this game took place in a courtroom was just part tradition and part necessity of the setting. Maybe Ryunosuke is gonna just follow Herlock Sholmes around and everything's gonna be this format, with the great deductions and the investigating and just solving everything on the spot on the scene, like Herlock Sholmes would. Well, Sherlock Holmes, I mean. But at the same time, no. I remember when I first started up this Let's Play, one of the very first things I saw when I moused over like between the two games, because this is a collection of two games, the title screen for the second game had this huge fancy smancy looking British court, so maybe everything I've just said is wrong, still. It's just interesting that the game is just keeping me on my toes about even the most basic things. It's such a good thing. Anyway, yeah, I'm very fascinated to see what happens next. Previously, I thought that this video here, we might finish things up and go to court. Maybe that's gonna be true for next time, maybe. Only time will tell, so I'm Zephyr the Jester. This has been more The Great Ace Attorney Chronicles. Thank you for watching, and hopefully I'll catch you next time. So until then, please take care.